My cheap friend kicked me out of his wedding, but his bride thanked me for it a week later. So I've known Greg since college. We weren't super close, but we hung out enough that when he got engaged, I got invited to be a groomsman. His fiancée Trish seemed cool. Normal girl, worked as a nurse, had her life together. The problem started at the first groomsman meeting. Greg wanted to have this destination wedding in Florida. Okay, fine. But then he announces we're all sharing 2 hotel rooms to save money. 6 grown men in 2 rooms for 4 days. I'm thinking he's joking. He's not. Then comes the suit situation. Greg found these rental suits online for $40 each. They looked like they came from a costume shop. Shiny fabric, weird fit, the whole thing. When I suggested we just wear our own suits, he got mad and said we needed to match. I dropped it. The bachelor party was next. Greg wanted us to chip in $300 each for his expenses. Not for the group, just for him. Because the groom shouldn't have to pay, apparently. When I said that seemed high, he sent this long text about how I should be honored to celebrate him. I paid it, whatever. But the real issue came up 2 months before the wedding. Greg calls me and says he needs to cut costs. The wedding's getting expensive. He's wondering if the groomsmen can help pay for the flowers. Not contribute, pay. Like full-on cover the cost. $2,000 split 6 ways. I said no. That's not how weddings work. You don't ask your wedding party to pay for your decorations. He got quiet and said he'd figure it out. Week later, he texts the group chat. New plan. We're covering our own hotel rooms now, plus he needs us to each bring a case of beer to the reception. The venue charges too much for alcohol. I'm reading this thinking it's got to be illegal to bring your own alcohol to a venue, but okay. Then he adds that we also need to pay for our own plates at the reception. $75 per person. For food at a wedding we're in. I call him directly. I'm trying to be nice about it. I tell him this is getting out of hand. That guests don't pay to attend weddings. That his groomsmen definitely shouldn't be funding his whole event. He loses it. Says I don't understand what it's like to plan a wedding. That I'm being selfish. That if I was a real friend, I'd help him out. I remind him I already dropped $600 on the bachelor party and suit rental. He says that's the bare minimum. I tell him I'm not paying $75 for dinner at his wedding. He says then maybe I shouldn't come to the wedding at all. I say fine, maybe I won't. He says I'm out of the wedding party. Just like that. Over the phone. Then he hangs up. I text Trish because I figure she should know what's happening. I keep it simple. Just say, Greg and I had a disagreement about wedding costs and I'm no longer in the wedding party. I wish her well. She doesn't respond. The wedding happens without me. I see photos on social media. The suits look terrible. The venue looks nice though. I don't think much about it after that. 7 days later, Trish calls me. I almost don't answer because why would the bride be calling me? But I pick up. She says thank you. Just straight up thanks me. I'm confused. She explains that after I texted her, she started asking Greg questions about the budget. Turns out he'd been lying to her about costs. The venue didn't require them to bring their own alcohol. The hotel rooms had a group discount he pocketed. The flowers were half the price he told everyone. Greg was using the wedding to make money off his groomsmen. Trish found spreadsheets on his laptop. He'd been planning to clear almost $4,000 by overcharging everyone and keeping the difference. She confronted him the night before the wedding. He admitted it. Said it was smart business. They got married the next day because everything was paid for and family flew in. But Trish told me she filed for an annulment 3 days ago. She thanked me because my text made her dig into the finances. She said if I hadn't pushed back, she would have married him without knowing he was willing to scam his own friends. She thanks me again, then asks if I'd be willing to give a statement to her lawyer. I say sure, whatever she needs. She sets up a meeting for next week. I show up to the law office and Greg's already there in the waiting room. Trish never hired a lawyer. Greg did. And I just walked into a lawsuit for defamation and interference with marriage. I stood there for a second processing what I was seeing. Greg in a navy suit looking smug as hell. Some lawyer type next to him flipping through papers. And no Trish anywhere. My stomach dropped. Greg stood up slowly, like he'd been waiting for this moment. Like he'd rehearsed it. Surprised? He said. I didn't answer. My brain was still catching up. The receptionist behind the desk looked uncomfortable. Like she knew something was about to go down but couldn't do anything about it. The lawyer, some guy in his 50s with gray hair and glasses that looked too small for his face, stepped forward and handed me an envelope. Mr. Hendricks, you've been served. My client is pursuing legal action for defamation of character and intentional interference with his marriage. You have 30 days to respond. I looked at the envelope like it might explode. This is a joke, I said. Trish called me. She asked me to come here. Greg laughed. Not a real laugh. One of those smug sounds people make when they think they've won something. Trish didn't call anyone. Her phone's been on our kitchen counter all week. I've been monitoring everything since she tried to file for annulment. I felt my jaw tighten. You used her phone to set me up. I used her phone to protect myself, he corrected. You cost me my marriage, Nolan. You stuck your nose where it didn't belong, and now you're going to pay for it. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mr. Hendricks, I'd advise you not to say anything further without legal representation present. I ignored him. You scammed your own groomsmen, Greg. You lied about costs and pocketed the difference. That's not me ruining your marriage. That's you. Greg's smug expression flickered, just for a second. Then it was back. Prove it, he said. You can't, because Trish already deleted everything. She felt bad after our conversation. We're working things out. Working things out, I repeated. She's not filing anymore. We're going to counseling. And part of her healing is knowing the person who tried to destroy us is going to face consequences. I looked at the envelope in my hand, looked back at Greg, looked at his overpriced lawyer. You really think this is going to work? I asked. I think you're about to spend a lot of money finding out. I walked out without another word. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anger. Pure, concentrated anger at how stupid I'd been to trust that phone call. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, just staring at the steering wheel. The envelope sat on the passenger seat like a bomb. I didn't want to open it, didn't want to make it real, but eventually, I did. The lawsuit claimed I had spread false information about Greg to his wife, causing emotional distress and damaging his reputation. It claimed I had intentionally interfered with their marriage by contacting Trish without Greg's knowledge. It was asking for $50,000 in damages. $50,000 for telling the truth. I drove home in a daze. My roommate Vince was on the couch playing video games when I walked in. He took one look at my face and paused the game. Dude, what happened? I handed him the envelope. He read through it, his expression getting darker with each page. This is insane, he said. He can't sue you for this. Apparently he can. But you didn't lie. Trish found the spreadsheets herself. She told you what he did. And now Greg says she deleted everything and they're back together. Vince shook his head. That's manipulation. He's got her under his thumb. Maybe. Or maybe she really did change her mind. I collapsed onto the other end of the couch. Either way, I'm screwed. I can't afford a lawyer. I definitely can't afford $50,000. Vince was quiet for a minute. Then he pulled out his phone. What are you doing? I asked. Calling my cousin Remy. She's a paralegal. Maybe she knows someone who can help. I wanted to argue, wanted to say it was pointless, but I was too tired, too defeated. Fine, I said. Call whoever you want. Remy called back an hour later. She'd already talked to a friend from law school, some guy named Bennett, who had just started his own practice and was looking for cases. He agreed to meet me the next day for a free consultation. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through every interaction I'd had with Greg over the past few months, trying to figure out how I'd missed the signs, how I'd let myself get played. The next morning, I showed up at Bennett's office. It was small, just 2 rooms above a sandwich shop downtown. The whole place smelled like roast beef. Bennett was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s. He had this calm energy, like nothing could rattle him. He read through the lawsuit while I sat across from him, bouncing my leg nervously. Okay, he said finally. This is aggressive, but it's not as strong as they want you to think. What do you mean? Defamation requires proof that you knowingly spread false information. If what you told Trish was true, and you believed it to be true, that's a defense. As for interference with marriage, that's a really hard claim to prove. You'd have to have acted with malicious intent, and a simple text message expressing concern doesn't meet that bar. So I have a chance. You have more than a chance, but here's the problem. He leaned forward. Lawsuits cost money. Even if you win, you're going to spend thousands on legal fees. Greg knows that. This is a pressure tactic. He's betting you'll settle just to make it go away. I can't settle. I don't have that kind of money. Then we fight. But I need you to understand what that means. Discovery, depositions, court dates. This could take months, maybe longer. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Greg's smug face in that waiting room. Thought about Trish, wherever she was, probably being gaslit into thinking I was the enemy. Yeah, I said. I'm prepared. Bennett nodded. Good. First thing we need to do is get our hands on any evidence that supports your version of events. You said Trish found spreadsheets? She told me she did, but Greg says she deleted them. Deleted doesn't mean gone. If they were on his computer, there's a chance they can be recovered. We'll need to subpoena his devices. Can we do that? If we can show reasonable cause, yes, but that's going to take time and money. I rubbed my face. How much are we talking? Bennett hesitated. For a case like this, with discovery and potential trial, you're looking at somewhere between 10 and 20,000. Could be more if it drags out. My heart sank. That was my entire savings. More than my entire savings. I know it's a lot, Bennett said, But I'm willing to work out a payment plan, and if we win, we can petition for Greg to cover your legal fees. And if we lose, then you're out the money and potentially liable for his damages. But based on what you've told me, I don't think we're going to lose. I sat with that for a minute. $10,000 to $20,000 for defending myself against something I didn't do. Okay, I said finally. Let's do it. Bennett extended his hand. Welcome to the worst experience of your life, Nolan. But we're going to get through it. The first few weeks were a blur of paperwork. Bennett filed our response to the lawsuit, denying all claims and requesting discovery. Greg's lawyer, whose name was apparently Whitmore, pushed back on everything. Every motion became a battle. Meanwhile, I was trying to live my normal life, going to work at the warehouse where I'd been for the past 3 years. Coming home exhausted. Spending my evenings going through old texts and emails, trying to find anything that might help my case. I found the group chat from the bachelor party planning. All the messages where Greg demanded we pay for his share. The receipts from the suit rentals. The Venmo history showing exactly how much I'd already spent. But none of it proved the core accusation that Greg had been scamming us. For that, I needed Trish. I thought about reaching out to her. Just a simple text, asking if she was okay. But Bennett warned me against it. Any contact could be twisted and used against me. I had to wait. 3 weeks into the lawsuit, something unexpected happened. I was at work, loading pallets onto a truck, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Nolan? I recognized the voice immediately. Trish, I can't talk to you. My lawyer said, I know, just listen. Please. I stepped away from the truck, pressing the phone harder against my ear. I'm so sorry, she said. Her voice was shaking. I didn't know he was going to do this. I didn't know about the lawsuit until after it was filed. He told me you'd been spreading lies about him to other people, that you were trying to ruin his reputation. That's not true. I know that now. She took a shaky breath. I found the spreadsheets again. He thought he deleted them, but they were still in the cloud backup. I have everything, Nolan. The real costs, the markup, all of it. He scammed everyone, not just the groomsmen. His own family members, too. His aunt gave him $5,000 for the catering, and he only spent $2,000. My heart was pounding. Trish, you need to tell my lawyer this. Can you testify? Silence on the other end. Trish, I want to, she said quietly, but I'm scared. He's not the person I thought he was. The way he talks to me now, the way he monitors everything. I feel like I'm trapped. You're not trapped. You can leave. We can help you. It's not that simple. We have a joint lease, joint accounts. He controls everything. If I try to leave, he'll destroy me. I leaned against the warehouse wall, trying to think. What about your family? Can they help? My mom's in Oregon, we're not close, and Greg's already convinced most of our mutual friends that I'm unstable, that the annulment was just cold feet. Trish, listen to me. What you have, those spreadsheets, that's evidence of fraud. Not just for my case. For a criminal case. Greg could be charged. I know. So why are you still there? Another long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because I don't have anywhere else to go. The call ended a few minutes later. Trish promised to think about what I'd said. Promised to send me the spreadsheets if she could find a safe way to do it. But I could hear the fear in her voice, the uncertainty. I called Bennett as soon as I got off the phone. This changes everything, he said after I explained. If we can get those documents, Greg's lawsuit falls apart. We can file a countersuit for malicious prosecution. Maybe even get him charged with fraud. But only if Trish cooperates. Right. And based on what you're telling me, she's in an abusive situation. That makes everything more complicated. What do we do? Bennett was quiet for a moment. We wait. We can't force her to help us. If we push too hard, she might shut down completely. But I'm going to reach out to a domestic violence advocacy group I've worked with before. See if they have any resources that might help. She's not being hit or anything. At least I don't think so. Abuse isn't always physical, Nolan. Financial control, isolation, monitoring her communications, those are all forms of abuse. And if she's experiencing those things, she needs support, not pressure. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Okay, let me know what you find out. 2 days later, Bennett called me back. I talked to the advocacy group. They're going to reach out to Trish directly. Just an informational call, letting her know her options. No pressure, and if she doesn't want help, then we respect that. But at least she'll know the resources are there. I hated waiting, hated feeling powerless, but I didn't have a choice. The weeks crawled by. Discovery continued. Whitmore fought us on every document request, claiming everything was privileged or irrelevant. Bennett pushed back, filing motion after motion. The legal fees started piling up. I drained my savings, started picking up extra shifts at the warehouse. Cut every expense I could think of, still barely staying afloat. Then, 6 weeks into the lawsuit, I got another call from Trish. "I did it," she said. I left. I sat down on the edge of my bed, relief flooding through me. "Where are you?" "A women's shelter about an hour outside the city. They helped me get out yesterday. I'm safe." "Trish, that's amazing. I'm so glad." "I have the spreadsheets," she continued. "All of them. And more. I found emails, Nolan. Emails between Greg and some of the vendors where he's literally negotiating lower prices and then telling people the costs were higher. It's all documented. Can you send it to my lawyer?" "Already did. He should have it by now." I couldn't believe it. After weeks of dead ends, everything was falling into place. "Thank you," I said. "Seriously? You didn't have to do any of this?" "Yes, I did. Greg used me just like he used everyone else. He made me think I was crazy for questioning him. Made me feel like the annulment was a mistake. But I wasn't crazy, and you weren't lying. What are you going to do now?" "Start over, I guess. The shelter's helping me find a job and an apartment. It's going to take time, but I'll figure it out. If you need anything, I'll let you know. But right now, I need to focus on myself. I've spent the last year living for Greg. Now I need to remember how to live for me." We said goodbye. I sat in the silence of my room for a long time, just processing everything. Bennett called an hour later. "I got the documents," he said. I could hear the excitement in his voice. "Nolan, this is a goldmine. Greg's entire defense just crumbled. We've got time-stamped emails proving he knowingly inflated costs. We've got the spreadsheets showing exactly how much he pocketed. And best of all, we've got a witness willing to testify. So what happens now? Now we go on offense. I'm filing a motion to dismiss his lawsuit tomorrow, and I'm preparing a countersuit for malicious prosecution, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Can we actually win?" Bennett laughed. "Win? Nolan, we're going to destroy him." Update 1. The motion hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. 3 weeks of waiting. 3 weeks of Greg probably sweating bullets. I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy that thought. Bennett spent the time preparing, building our case, organizing all the evidence Trish had provided into a damning timeline. He also reached out to the other groomsmen, the ones who'd actually paid Greg's inflated fees. Turns out I wasn't the only one who'd had doubts. The first guy to respond was Elias. We'd met at the bachelor party but hadn't really clicked. He was a software engineer, kind of quiet, the type who observes more than he talks. I knew something was off, Elias told Bennett during a phone interview. The numbers didn't add up. But Greg kept saying the venue was expensive, the catering was expensive, everything was expensive. I figured Florida prices were just higher than I expected. "How much did you pay total? Between the hotel, the suit, the bachelor party contributions, and the plate fee. Almost $1,200 for a wedding I attended for 1 day." Bennett documented everything. Every payment, every excuse Greg had given, every lie. The second groomsman to come forward was Calvin. He'd actually been Greg's roommate in college. They'd lived together for 3 years. "Greg's always been like this," Calvin admitted. "Always looking for angles, ways to get something for nothing. I thought he'd grown out of it, but I guess not." "Can you give specific examples?" "Back in school, he used to buy textbooks at the beginning of the semester, scan all the pages, then return them for a full refund. Sold the digital copies to other students. Made a few $100 every semester." "Did anyone ever confront him about it?" "Once. A professor found out and reported him. Greg talked his way out of it. Said he didn't know it was against the rules. They let him off with a warning." The pattern was becoming clear. Greg wasn't just a one-time scammer. This was who he was, who he'd always been. By the time the hearing rolled around, Bennett had collected statements from 5 of the 6 groomsmen. The only holdout was Jared, Greg's cousin. He refused to participate, saying he didn't want to get involved in family drama. Fair enough. We had enough without him. The courthouse was cold that morning. I remember because I'd underdressed, thinking we'd be inside the whole time, but there was a delay, some scheduling conflict, and we ended up waiting in the hallway for almost an hour. Greg showed up looking less smug than the last time I'd seen him. His suit was wrinkled, like he'd slept in it. Dark circles under his eyes. Whitmore, his lawyer, was trying to put on a confident front, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. They knew what was coming. The hearing itself was almost anticlimactic. Bennett presented the motion to dismiss, citing the new evidence obtained during discovery. He walked the judge through the timeline, the inflated invoices, the pocketed difference, the emails where Greg explicitly discussed his scheme. Whitmore tried to object, tried to claim the evidence had been obtained improperly, that Trish had accessed Greg's accounts without permission. The judge shut him down. The documents were obtained from a shared cloud storage account that both parties had access to during their marriage, she said. There's no expectation of privacy in a jointly held account. Whitmore looked like he'd swallowed something sour. The judge continued. Furthermore, the evidence clearly demonstrates that the plaintiff's claims of defamation are unfounded. The defendant's statements to Mrs. Holloway were truthful and supported by documentary evidence. The motion to dismiss is granted. I exhaled. Bennett squeezed my shoulder, but we weren't done. Your Honor, Bennett said, at this time we'd like to introduce our counterclaims against Mr. Holloway for malicious prosecution, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The judge nodded. Proceed. What followed was 45 minutes of Bennett methodically laying out everything Greg had done. The wedding scam, the lawsuit designed to intimidate me into silence, the manipulation of his wife to cover his tracks. Greg sat through the whole thing stone-faced, but I could see his leg bouncing under the table, the vein in his forehead throbbing. When Bennett finished, the judge turned to Whitmore. Does the defense wish to respond? Whitmore stood, hesitated, looked at Greg. Greg whispered something to him. Whitmore shook his head. Greg whispered more urgently. Whitmore's expression darkened, but he turned back to the judge. Your Honor, my client would like to request a brief recess to consider his options. The judge checked her watch. 15 minutes. We'll reconvene at 10:30. I turned to Bennett. What's happening? He's panicking, Bennett said quietly. Whitmore probably just told him how bad this looks. They're going to try to settle. Settle? After everything he put me through? That's how these things usually go. He offers money to make it go away. You accept or you don't. I don't want his money. I want him to admit what he did. Bennett gave me a look. That's noble, Nolan, but think about it. You've spent months on this. Thousands of dollars. If he offers a decent settlement, you can recover your legal fees and move on with your life. And he gets away with it? Not entirely. The evidence is public record now. Anyone who looks into Greg Holloway is going to find this. His reputation is already destroyed. I chewed on that. He wasn't wrong. The damage was done. But something in me wanted more. Wanted Greg to stand up in front of a judge and admit, out loud, that he'd lied. That he'd scammed his friends. That he'd tried to ruin my life because I'd called him out. The recess ended. We filed back in. Whitmore stood. Your Honor, after discussion with my client, we'd like to propose a settlement. Mr. Holloway will withdraw his claims, cover the defendant's legal fees in full, and provide a written apology for any distress caused by this litigation. I looked at Bennett. He raised his eyebrows, waiting for my decision. What about the fraud? I asked, loud enough for the whole room to hear. What about the money he stole from his groomsmen, from his own family? The judge held up a hand. Mr. Hendricks, this isn't the forum for that discussion. The current matter is limited to the claims between you and Mr. Holloway. Any criminal charges would need to be pursued separately. I turned to Bennett. Can we do that? Pursue criminal charges? It would be up to the district attorney, but yes. With the evidence we have, there's a strong case for fraud. I looked at Greg. He was staring at the table, refusing to meet my eyes. I'll accept the settlement, I said, but only if it includes a public admission that his original claims were baseless. Not a private apology, a public statement. Whitmore conferred with Greg. Greg shook his head violently. My client is not willing to make a public statement, Whitmore said. Then there's no settlement. The judge sighed. Mr. Hendricks, I understand your frustration, but I'd encourage you to consider the offer. A trial will be lengthy and expensive even with a strong case. With respect, Your Honor, I've already spent months being dragged through this because Greg thought he could bully me into silence. If he's not willing to admit what he did, then we go to trial. Silence in the courtroom. Greg finally looked up, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that looked like fear. Fine, he said suddenly, cutting off Whitmore. Fine, I'll make a statement. Whitmore grabbed his arm. Greg, I strongly advise, I don't care. I just want this over. The judge looked between them. Mr. Holloway, are you sure? Once this is on record, it can't be taken back. Greg nodded. He looked defeated, broken. Good. The statement was drafted that afternoon. Greg admitted that his claims against me were unfounded, that he had filed a lawsuit in an attempt to silence me after I'd exposed his financial misconduct, that he had misrepresented costs to his wedding party and kept the difference for himself. He signed it in front of the judge, handed copies to Bennett and Whitmore, walked out of the courthouse without looking at anyone. I stood on the steps outside, holding my copy of the document, feeling the weight of everything lift off my shoulders. You did it, Bennett said, standing beside me. We did it. He shook my hand. I'll send you my final invoice. Fair warning. It's going to be a lot less than you were expecting. What do you mean? Greg's covering your legal fees, remember? His admission of wrongdoing triggered that clause in the settlement. You're getting reimbursed for everything. I stared at him. Everything? Every penny. Plus a little extra for emotional distress. Congratulations, Nolan. You just made $23,000 for telling the truth. I laughed. Couldn't help it. The absurdity of the whole situation hitting me all at once. $23,000 from the guy who kicked me out of his wedding for refusing to pay $75. Update 2. I wish I could say that was the end of it, that Greg disappeared into obscurity and I never had to think about him again. But life doesn't work that way. 2 weeks after the settlement, I got a call from Elias, the software engineer from the Groomsmen Group. "Have you checked social media today?" he asked. "No, why?" "Greg's been posting. A lot." I pulled up Facebook. Greg had written a novel-length post claiming he'd been the victim of a coordinated attack, that Trish had cheated on him and was now working with her lover, me apparently, to destroy his reputation, that the evidence had been fabricated, that he'd only signed the settlement because his lawyer had pressured him. The comments were a war zone, some people defending him, others tearing him apart. The truth didn't seem to matter anymore. People just picked sides. I screenshotted everything and sent it to Bennett. "This is defamation," he said when he called back. "Actual defamation. He's making false statements about you with clear malicious intent. So what do we do?" We could sue him again. But honestly, I don't think it's worth it. He's desperate and flailing. The more he posts, the worse he looks. Let him dig his own grave. And if people believe him, the people who matter already know the truth. The court records are public. Anyone who actually does their research will see through his lies. I took his advice, didn't respond, didn't engage, just watched as Greg spiraled. The posts got more unhinged over the following days. He started naming other people he claimed had wronged him, former coworkers, old friends, even some family members. Each post was longer and more paranoid than the last. Then, about 10 days in, the posts stopped. His entire social media went silent. I found out why a week later. Calvin, Greg's old roommate, reached out to the Groomsmen group chat with a screenshot of a local news article. The headline read, "Local man arrested on multiple counts of fraud and identity theft." Greg had been running schemes for years. The wedding scam was just the tip of the iceberg. After Trish left him and the lawsuit fell apart, someone at his job started digging into discrepancies in the company's accounts. Turned out Greg had been embezzling small amounts for over 3 years. Never enough to trigger an audit, but enough to add up. The company reported him to the police. The police found more. Credit cards opened in relatives' names. A fake charity he'd set up to collect donations that went straight to his personal account. A whole web of lies and theft stretching back nearly a decade. He was being charged with 15 counts of fraud, 5 counts of identity theft, and 1 count of wire fraud. If convicted on all charges, he was looking at 20 to 30 years. I read the article 3 times. Couldn't process it. The guy who'd kicked me out of his wedding for not wanting to pay for dinner was going to prison. Trish reached out a few days later. She sounded different, lighter. "I saw the news," she said. "I know I should feel bad, but I don't. Is that wrong?" "No. You were a victim too. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed, the weird explanations, the secrecy about money. I thought I was being paranoid. You weren't. He was just really good at lying." "Yeah, he was." We talked for a while longer, about recovery, about moving forward, about how strange it felt to have your whole life revealed as a lie. Before she hung up, she thanked me again. "For what?" I asked. "For pushing back. If you'd just paid the $75 like everyone else, none of this would have come out. Greg would still be scamming people. I'd still be married to a criminal. I was just trying to avoid paying for overpriced chicken at my friend's wedding." She laughed. It was the first time I'd heard her laugh since before any of this started. $75 changed my whole life," she said. "Cheapest wedding I never attended." Update 3. 6 months later, I got a text from Bennett. "Turn on Channel 4. Greg's trial is starting." I turned it on. There he was, in an orange jumpsuit, being led into a courtroom. The same guy who'd looked so smug in that law office waiting room. The same guy who'd threatened to destroy me. He looked small now, thin, like he'd aged 10 years in 6 months. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The prosecution presented evidence that made the wedding scam look like nothing. Bank records, testimony from victims, digital forensics showing exactly how Greg had created fake accounts and moved money around. Greg's defense was that he'd had a gambling problem, that he'd been trying to pay off debts, that he needed help, not punishment. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty on 12 of the 15 fraud charges. Guilty on all 5 identity theft charges. Guilty on wire fraud. Sentencing was scheduled for a month later. I didn't watch the sentencing. Didn't need to. Bennett texted me the result. 22 years. Eligible for parole in 15. 22 years. For lying. For stealing. For thinking he was smarter than everyone else. I thought I'd feel satisfied. Vindicated. But mostly, I just felt tired. Tired of the whole thing. Tired of Greg being any part of my life. A year has passed since the sentencing. Life has moved on. I'm still at the warehouse, but But I got promoted to supervisor. Better hours. Better pay. Enough to rebuild the savings I'd drained during the lawsuit. Vince and I still live together. He's engaged now to a woman he met at a concert. I'm going to be his best man. He's already promised the wedding will be reasonable. No $75 plates. No shiny rental suits. I stayed in touch with Trish for a while. She got a new job at a hospital across the state. Started dating again. Last I heard, she was happy. Finally free. Elias and I became actual friends. We grab dinner sometimes, laugh about the absurdity of how we met. Through a scam wedding and a lawsuit. Not exactly a typical origin story. I think about Greg sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. Usually late at night when I can't sleep. I wonder if he ever thinks about how different his life could have been. If he'd just been honest. If he'd just charged people what things actually cost. If he'd just treated his friends like friends instead of marks to be exploited. But then I remember the smug look on his face in that waiting room. The way he said surprised, like he'd already won. And I stopped wondering. Some people can't be helped. Some people don't want to be. Greg chose his path a long time ago, and now he's paying for it. As for me, I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. All because I refused to pay $75 to eat dinner at a wedding I was supposed to be in. Sometimes the smallest decisions change everything. Standing up for yourself when it would be easier to go along. Saying no when everyone else says yes. Refusing to be taken advantage of, even by someone you thought was a friend. I didn't know that phone call with Greg would lead to lawsuits and criminal trials and prison sentences. I just knew that paying to attend a wedding I was in felt wrong. Trusting that feeling saved me. And in a weird way, it saved Trish too. And maybe some of the other people Greg would have scammed if he'd never been caught. I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who didn't want to pay for overpriced chicken. But sometimes, that's enough. That's where I thought the story would end. But life had one more twist waiting. 3 weeks ago, I got a letter. No return address. Postmarked from the state correctional facility where Greg is serving his sentence. I almost threw it away without opening it. What could he possibly have to say that I'd want to hear? But curiosity got the better of me. The letter was handwritten. 3 pages. Greg's writing had always been neat, almost mechanical. This was messier. Like his hand had been shaking. "Nolan," it began. "You're probably surprised to get this. You probably don't want to hear from me. I wouldn't blame you if you threw this away without reading it, but I needed to write this. Not for you, for me." He went on for 2 pages about his childhood. His dad, who'd abandoned the family when Greg was 7. His mom, who'd worked 3 jobs and still couldn't make ends meet. The shame of being the poor kid in a wealthy neighborhood. The feeling of always being on the outside looking in. "I learned early that the world wasn't fair," he wrote. "That some people had everything and others had nothing. I told myself I'd never be on the have-nothing side again. I'd do whatever it took." He talked about the first time he'd scammed someone. A kid in middle school who'd paid him $20 for a video game cartridge that turned out to be empty. Greg had felt guilty for about 5 minutes. Then he'd used the money to buy lunch for a week. That was when I realized nobody was going to look out for me, except me. And if I had to step on people to survive, then that's what I'd do. The letter went on. His time in college. The textbook scam Calvin had mentioned. The way it got easier and easier to lie, to manipulate, to see everyone around him as either a tool or an obstacle. "I didn't see you as a friend, Nolan. I don't think I've ever really seen anyone as a friend. Just people who could help me get what I wanted. When you pushed back about the wedding costs, you became a threat. Something to be dealt with." The 3rd page was shorter, more subdued. "I'm not writing this to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm writing because I finally understand what I lost. Not the money, not the freedom, the chance to be a real person, to have real relationships, to matter to someone for who I am, not what I can give them." He talked about therapy. The prison offered sessions, and he'd been going 3 times a week. His therapist had suggested writing letters to people he'd wronged as part of his recovery. "You were the first name I wrote down. You stood up to me when no one else would. You saw through me when everyone else bought my lies. I hated you for it. Now I respect you for it." The letter ended with a simple line. "I hope you have a good life, Nolan. I mean that. For what it's worth, I'm sorry." I sat with that letter for a long time, read it 3 times, then put it in a drawer. I'm not sure what I feel about it. Part of me thinks it's just another manipulation, Greg trying to make himself feel better by performing remorse. But part of me wonders if there's something real there, if 22 years in prison can change a person. If the kid who grew up poor and scared and alone deserves a little sympathy, even if the man he became doesn't. I don't know if I'll ever respond. Probably not. What would I even say? But I'm glad I read it. It reminded me that everyone has a story. Everyone has reasons for becoming who they are. It doesn't excuse the choices they make, but it helps explain them. Greg Holloway is going to spend the next 15 to 20 years of his life in prison. He'll be nearly 60 by the time he's eligible for parole. The world will have moved on without him. And me? I'll keep going, keep living, keep trusting my gut when something feels wrong. That $75 taught me a lot. About friendship, about standing up for myself, about how small moments can cascade into life-changing events. If I'd just paid it, I'd probably still be friends with Greg, still be oblivious to who he really was, maybe even caught up in one of his other schemes. But I didn't pay it. I said no, and that made all the difference. Final update. I'm writing this sitting on the patio of my new apartment. First place I've had to myself since college. Vince got married last month, so he moved out. The wedding was great, by the way. Casual, affordable. No one had to pay for their own dinner. I'm 32 now. It's been almost 3 years since Greg kicked me out of his wedding. 3 years since a simple text message unraveled a con artist's entire life. I've learned a lot in that time. About trust, about boundaries, about the kind of person I want to be. I've also started dating again. Her name is Mira. She's a teacher, 2nd grade. She has this laugh that makes everything feel lighter. I told her about the whole Greg situation on our 3rd date. Figured if she was going to run, better to find out early. She didn't run. She listened to the whole story, asked a few questions, then said, "So basically you're the guy who doesn't put up with nonsense, I guess." Good. I don't put up with nonsense either. We'll get along. We've been together 8 months now, taking it slow, like Bennett suggested back when this all started. No rush. But it feels real, feels honest, feels like what a relationship should feel like.